Doctor Who is back. I missed the first 3 episodes because I was in Japan having a lovely time, so I've got quite a lot to catch up on in this video. So leave a like and let's get into the robot revolution. The most important thing to talk about in this episode is its role as a companion introduction. So I want to talk about the companion that it introduces, Miss Belinda Chandra. I think she makes a pretty fantastic first impression in this episode. She endeared herself to me so immediately with her alien abduction. I think I've seen some people say that she was a little too quippy in that, you know, it wasn't a normal human reaction, but I think something I've always liked about Russell T Davies's writing is the kind of the human nature of it all, the kind of in amongst the alien chaos, you're bewildered by it, you're shocked by it, but, parts of yourself come out in unexpected ways, parts of your own personality sneak through, even in an outrageous situation that you'd never find yourself to be in. Like, you're not just this, archetypal human going, oh my god, aliens, you have parts of yourself come through. I think of Ruby in the church on Ruby Road getting annoyed that the goblin hissed at her, and then kind of stepping back and going, oh, hang on, how's there a goblin at all, And when she's talking to Mrs. Flood, you get the kind of initial, tell the neighbour that her cat went off to a farm, and then she's like, and tell the police I've been made Queen of Outer Space, and then you get the, and my parents, it feels a very human, chaotic train of thought there. It's not like, she immediately thinks of the most important thing. She thinks of stupid things that ultimately don't matter. Sorry, cat. And then she's like, oh my god, she's grappling with the reality of the situation. I think you get the clear sense throughout the episode that Belinda is really smart, and I think it comes across really naturally. I think she adapts to things very quickly, and even when she's not familiar with alien biology or, alien medicine or kind of time terminology, she can keep up with what she's being told. And I've always liked that in the first Russell T Davies era. I've always liked characters that don't spend the whole time going, what? None of this makes sense to me. Like, you do catch on. If you're smart, you are capable of figuring these things out. Like, she's able to talk about and discuss the time schwupp without knowing anything about that kind of thing, because she experienced it and she's being given enough information to grapple with it, just as we as an audience are. Vara the Sethu takes this character that feels like she's already pretty well defined on the page, and she brings such fun life to her. I've been a fan of her since Andor, which wasn't that long ago, but it's nice to have that kind of already pleasant association when I see her. But I think Belinda is such a different character to Cinta, and I don't know, I think the character is really well written, I think, across all the episodes, but I'll get to the rest. I think even in this first episode, you kind of really get a clear sense of who she is. And on top of that, you get the sense that she is fun to be around. Like, she is not as a kind of cat person, but as a character. You love to spend time with her. I love to spend time with her. I think those little deliveries, those little moments, the timey-wimey, am I six? I think that's a really fun, clear bit of thing. The kind of scathing, she kind of sees the TARDIS and she's like, well, that's ridiculous. Like, it's a really fun attitude to bring. So that whole side of it gets a big thumbs up, and I guess I now have to talk about the rest of the episode, the robot side of the robot revolution. I think as a big, the robots themselves, they're this kind of physical, practical presence in the episode, and I think that works. It's not big CGI nothing. It's proper Doctor Who. You could really reach out and touch them. As a design, I don't really care for them. I think they're just fairly generic with emoji facial expressions, which is something we've seen before. But I do think Miss Belinda Chandrabots as a name is funny. I think that's good, and I think Miss Belinda Chandra bombs, all that stuff. It's like, okay, you know what? You've won me over on that little detail. I like the disintegration effect when they shoot someone. When it kind of freezes them in their last frame. I think at this stage we should have run out of cool, unique alien laser beams, but they've come up with a new one, so pretty good. The cat bit really made me laugh, although I thought it was weird that we never saw the cat before it. Like, all we see of the cat is the dead cat outline, and I think it would be funnier and less kind of jarring if we saw a bit of cat set up before that. This episode also has the whole detail with the every 9th word being something that robots aren't capable of keeping up with, and I think that's a cool sci-fi thing. I don't know if it's been done before in anything, but to me it felt fairly fresh. It also felt like it was a good enough idea that it should have been more important to the episode. Like, it should have come into play more than just twice. I like when the Doctor is saying basically 2 things at once, and you've got the kind of every 9th word is the real message that you're trying to hear underneath everything. I think the episode does a decent job of, like, you get a kind of close-up on him to let you know when you're meant to be paying attention. I think, yeah, he sells that very well as a performance, that you know what has been said, and then the episode's like, here's just a little reminder, like it does a little compilation of all the words so you can hear it in context. And maybe it's because there's kids watching, but as an adult, I'm like, we already knew that, by the way. And it's fun when Belinda does it on her fingers, because like you wouldn't be able to do it just like that. And she's smart enough to keep up, but she can't just whip out knowing what word the ninth word is every time. I think as far as the rest of the episode goes, I don't care at all about the robot revolution, the robot conflict. I think the robots are dull. I think the rebels are dull. I think the bit of tension we get with Belinda and like the mean, hot rebel guy, it feels really forced and pointless, and I don't buy into any of that at all. I think Belinda kind of taking that and going, yeah, I'm going to turn myself in, I'm causing this trouble, so she gives up the location of Rebel HQ and tells the robots, don't kill the rebels, just come for me. It's like, you don't have that power. They've told you have no real power at all. And so to give yourself up, you bring them to the enemy base and just hope that they do what you say. It's like this real moron moment in a sea of fairly smart decision making from Belinda. And yeah, it's that whole side of it does nothing for me. Then we have Robot Alan, who at least looks great. I think that's a cool, human robot design. What's going on there? I mean, there's this one line he has that's like, oh, this is like a video game. I'm like a fascist dictator because you get to do shooting like a video game. And I wasn't so sure about that. Not because it was like offensive for gamers. I think the gamer to fascist pipeline is one that is just as relevant as ever. But as a general point of like, I like war because I saw it in a computer game, that feels like an old-fashioned talking point. And it feels like the kind of clearer incel point that they're making about control, like he's a controlling man and then he becomes a kind of controlling leader. That feels like it's coming from a more informed, more relevant position as a detail. I liked the Al/AI twist as a funny moment, but I was a little disappointed that we had this whole thing with the AI generator just to not make any points about generative AI. It kind of felt like, if not now, when? And I don't know, it kind of felt like we were on the verge of making a particular point and then we didn't get that. And to be honest, that whole resolution felt like we were consistently on the verge of making a point and then never quite getting to anything in particular. Like as soon as we're reintroduced to the every ninth word idea, it's dropped again. We get this kind of attempted pity and sympathy for Alan in amongst the kind of he's an awful misogynist kind of thing, and the doctor's like, I can help you, and then that doesn't happen, and he dies, and it becomes funny that he's dead and he's a sperm. It all felt a little all over the place on how it wanted me to feel and what it wanted me to get from these dynamics. And I think just a bit of a rough note to end that side of the plot on. I've talked about Belinda, I've talked about the plot, but I want to talk about Doctor Who. I don't know if you know him, he's the main guy. I think after a very strong Christmas special for Ncuti Gatwa, this is another good episode for him, and that's quite exciting. I like the physicality of Ncuti's performance in this. I like the way he moves through the hospital. I think the flowiness of his costume helps with that. Like he's wearing the skirt or the kilt, and he's kind of just waltzing his way around, and I like that side of this Doctor. And I think that's a fun bit of him just kind of, we don't quite know why he's there or what he's doing, but he's got something going on and he can't quite can't quite get there in time. I do like that he just kills everyone in that hospital though, like everyone on life support, everyone who was requiring electricity there. Just a funny, Doctor Who fans can point to that and go, were there any consequences to that? No, probably not. I like at the start when he's been immersed with the humans for a while and you can kind of spot him in the background before the show draws any attention to him. I kind of wish they hadn't drawn quite as much attention to him. I think if he'd just been one of the background humans, Miss Belinda Chandra kind, I think Time Lords, Timeless Children, if he was just kind of in the background there, you would just maybe spot him, maybe not, and then when he steps forward as the historian, it would be this thing. But they specifically have that moment where he looks at Sasha and it's like, hey audience, Doctor Who's here as well. It doesn't matter. It was almost better than it was. I like that when the Doctor and Belinda first come together in the Rebel medical wing, you get kind of the Doctor's trying to do his proper I'm Doctor Who explanation of events, and Belinda just kind of doesn't care. He's expecting this open-eared companion presence, and he just kind of she throws herself into being useful and getting on with nurse stuff, and I quite like that as setting the dynamic apart right from the start of their pairing. I like that little bit about the kind of eugenics bit, the kind of Belinda going, oh, which of these alien bodies is better then? And the Doctor kind of going, ooh, we don't do that. And she's like, oh yeah, of course. Like, yeah, no, that's a bad line of thinking. And I think it's a very human question. It's a very reasonable thing to wonder when you're presented with kind of physiological differences like that. And I like that the Doctor kind of has, through experience, just, he's realised he can pinpoint that quite early on as something not to do. He's got this moment, this kind of this wisdom, I guess, that is different to Belinda's, even though they're kind of on a similar level of compassion and understanding. He can just get there quicker, and I just thought that was a nice little bit of like kind of human moment and Time Lord moment, and the two kind of being in agreement, but just at different stages of realization. I've mentioned her already, but we have Sasha 55. I wonder if her parents are still alive. She gets that moment where she's doing the, I'm saying I'm going to be your new companion, so that means I'm about to die thing. And it's kind of a really extreme, cartoonish version of that, where it's like, show me the stars, Doctor Who, that immediate kind of death. And it was so comical that I wondered if it was deliberate, like we were making a point about how funny that is. Rick and Morty came to mind, it felt like that. And then they kind of started playing it straight, and I was like, oh no, we're not making a comment about this, we're just doing it. Ncuti was upset about her death, and they kind of felt like they wanted us to care. And I'm not sure that added a huge amount in that moment, and then it did become a little relevant later on. It's relevant to Belinda's perception of the Doctor. She's kind of dropped in on this guy, and he's got this intense dynamic with this woman. She tells Belinda that, I trust the Doctor so completely, and then she dies. And then the Doctor moves on and is like, okay, Belinda, now you're my person. And it's like, hang on. And I think it kind of starts out their relationship on this interestingly shoddy foundation. So in that way, it works. I don't know why it had to be so ridiculous. I don't know why it had to be such a rushed kind of exactly what you'd expect from someone who's like, and then after this episode, I'll travel with you. And they're not in the opening credits, so they won't. And I think they still want me, I know what it does for Belinda's relationship, but they still want me to care about Sasha more than it's possible for me to care about Sasha. They named the Citadel after her, and it's like, great. But that kind of brings me to my main takeaway from this episode, and that's that I think Russell T Davies might have an actual angle on the Doctor. He might have something to say about the character. We see this new kind of side to 15, this kind of manipulative, invasive kind of side. He thinks he's right because so often he is, but it's at the point where he just plows through and assumes everyone's in agreement that he knows best. It's that kind of smug, I know more than you, and therefore you will do what I say and you will thank me for it. I saw someone kind of draw the connection between Alan's very controlling proposal to Belinda and the Doctor crossing a similar line with the kind of scanning of her without her permission, without her discussion. And I think on rewatch, I noticed that Belinda's like, oh, you were in my house? Like, she makes a face. She's like, who allowed that to happen? In the moment, it kind of comes off as surprise, but it's this kind of, who gave you that right kind of look. And I think that's really fascinating. When they're in the TARDIS, she at first goes along with this wide-eyed kind of companion vibe and like, wow, we're destined to be together, we're going to travel, or, is that what you told Sasha? She throws it back in his face and starts confronting him about how messed up some of his behaviour is and has been. And I think you then get something interesting from the Doctor where, like, there's that dip in the vibe, and, he... the energy falls, and then he tries to bring it up. He's kind of cheeky, charming, smiley, haha, sorry. And for the first time, this, smiley, happy, cheery version of the Doctor is being smiley, happy, cheery, and you don't believe him. You're like, hang on, you're doing this to deflect. You're doing this to not actually deal with what has just been thrown in your face and brought up into the discussion. And I think taking what we already understand as this Doctor's traits and weaponizing that, or having him weaponize that, is fantastic. And I'm interested to see if this was kind of a one-off thing, or if this is kind of a new layer to the Doctor that we see carry through for the rest of the season. And I think Belinda's with us there. I don't think she fully believes him. I don't think she buys into that as a kind of deflection technique. And I think having this dynamic of the, two main characters where there is that tension there's that kind of built-in pushback against the Doctor's behaviour. It's how we know it's deliberate. It's how we as an audience recognise this stuff, because we're seeing it not just on screen and going, oh, that's a bit messed up, but having someone in the episode say, hey, that's messed up. That's how we know this is Russell writing the Doctor in a particular way to make a point, and not just as a byproduct of, unfortunate writing. I think... okay, I'll bring her up. The 13th Doctor would often do stuff that was messed up. I think she would often say things that made you go, oh, okay. But she was never called out for it. The stories would never kind of question that. And you'd end up going, is this just a mean Doctor for the sake of it? Is this just an accidentally mean Doctor? Whereas this, he's less mean, but he's... you know that everything they're doing is for a purpose and with a lot of intent behind it, and that's exciting to me. We get a look right away at the kind of overarching story of this series. We have getting Belinda home. I like that as a hook. It's kind of character-focused serialization rather than just, plot-focused. I think... for that reason, I'm a lot less interested in the Boom connection and the Belinda mystery box stuff. That all feels a little familiar. I think I would be more interested in this if Belinda, her only reason for being involved was the star certificate, and that was what got her off planet, and then something else is stopping her getting back, but it's not to do with her. I quite liked that it wasn't the Doctor that came and swept her away or stole her or whatever. It was something else did, and then the Doctor's bringing her back. But what we do have feels a little Impossible Girl, and it feels a little, here's the date where the world's going to end. It feels a little Series 5, and... I don't know. That being said, I do quite like the effect at the end, the visuals of here's the remnants of Earth. I just wonder if there's a way to do it without it feeling quite so much like we've done this before. The Doctor talks about someone sending him to find Belinda, someone he trusts with his life, a man, I think, and it's strange, and I wonder where that's going, and I don't love that the Doctor knows more about this than we do. It kind of feels like we should be with him. I guess we're with Belinda on it, but I think the reveal will probably mean more to us than it does to Belinda, so I don't know. That's interesting. This is Gallifrey plays when they're talking about that. That's kind of interesting. I mean, he's also talking about how he's from another planet. It's kind of a one long running conversation, so it might just be he mentions he's an alien, let's play This Is Gallifrey. I've not seen many people talk about how it is This Is Gallifrey, but it kind of is. It's all the notes. Out of my iPad speaker, it sounded clear as day, and then when I rewatched it on the TV, I was like, oh, I'm actually not hearing it quite so much, but I'm fairly certain that that's what played. So maybe that adds to speculation, a male Gallifrey character that's behind this all, or maybe it's just that the Doctor is a male Gallifrey character himself. I think Mrs. Flood is really fun in this episode. I like that she's kind of addressing us and saying, oh, you didn't see me, and she's like ducking away from the Doctor. I think the fact she's doing it for our benefit and not his separates her a bit from what was the last one called? Susan Twist, the last woman that we saw every week. Yeah, I think in this episode it worked. I think all the kind of timey-wimey stuff of this episode is a little clunky. I think, we've got all the stuff with the certificates at the different points in time, and we've got the history of the planet before the revolution and longer before the revolution and during, and I don't know, I think none of it is wrong. It's not like, oh, plot hole, but I think it's not conveyed gracefully enough that it just kind of clicks into place. I think you have to do a little bit of thinking, a little bit of like, right, okay, yeah, all right. And I think when you're thinking like that, it's getting in the way of any potential feeling. I think there's another writer of this show, Stephen Moffat. If he wrote it, it would just snap. It would be satisfying, and you'd go, great, yes, of course, fine. And then you'd be able to do all the kind of emotion stuff that he would be then throwing at you. Whereas spending time on the logistics of time stuff, I don't think it's ever been Russell T Davis's strong suit, really. And I think it gets in the way. There were a couple of things that just felt a little off in the script. Belinda is like, oh, get me back to my home, and then gives him a specific date. And then, the conversation reveals it's a time machine, and she's like, this is a time machine? And it's like, what did you think he could do if this wasn't? Also, she knows it's a TARDIS by name before he says it. And it's like, okay, was it, part of them touching the certificates and learning about each other? Was it part of a deleted scene that we didn't see? Or are we meant to be digging in and speculating about? I think the show has lost just enough polish that we can't kind of dig into this on we can't take it at face value and go, right, what did it mean by this? What does it want us to think? Does Belinda know more than she says she does? Or whether to just go, ugh, another goof from Mr. the Davies. So I don't know. I wish the show hadn't quite got to that point where we're, season 1 was often referencing things from deleted scenes and kind of skipping past things and just feeling a little less smooth, I suppose. So as a general verdict, it was pretty good. I didn't love it. I think I've touched on it, but I think the episode really loses its way once you go down into those rebel tunnels. I think I had really mixed feelings on everything that it was trying to show me and tell me in its climax. I think it felt muddled, and I think it felt, I don't know, not that I was meant to have mixed feelings about it, but that I wasn't sure which feelings to have about it. Like, it didn't feel intentional there. And I think, although there are good moments throughout, I think that the kind of rough element of the climax, it just made me think less of the episode by the end of it, and I think that's a shame, because at the start I was like, wow, this is great, I'm having a really good time. So yeah, I think it's a really good companion introduction. It's a pretty good first adventure with this new TARDIS team, and I like what it's setting up, but I think I can't point to it and say what a great episode in and of itself, which is, it's a bit like Space Babies, but I think it's much better than Space Babies. But both of them, it would be so nice if it did all the things it was meant to do, got you excited for the future, and was good in and of itself. But yeah, no, I think it's a much stronger start than Space Babies, probably exclusively because Belinda gets so much richer characterization than Ruby did at this stage, or maybe ever. We'll talk about it. Let's move on and talk about episode 2, Lux. Proper episode, proper bit of Doctor Who here. I liked the start. I liked that we spent some time in the TARDIS before the adventure got going. I think it's early days, so you kind of have to, but I hope that this remains a prominent element of the the TARDIS interior remains a presence that we feel throughout the season, because it's definitely stopped being that towards the back end of the first season. We redo the Devil's Cord clothes bit in the wardrobe. I think it's maybe a bit weird to do it again. Maybe it's just like a fun element that we do now. And I think Belinda's dress is amazing. And to be honest, I liked it then and I liked it now. We get a bit of backstory for Belinda. She talks about her parents, and someone said it was a typical behaviour of someone who'd been kidnapped, a kidnapping victim, humanising themselves to their captor, so they're more likely to be let go. And I think that's really interesting. That kind of, if I tell him about my mum and dad, he'll bring me back to them, I'm sure. I don't think the Doctor is as malicious as that, but I think there is an element to him of. I don't know, he is enjoying the mystery a bit too much. He would love to get Belinda home, but I'm not sure it's his priority. I think he's got other interests. He's interested in solving the mystery and digging a little deeper and watching that play out. He's getting enough of a kick from that he's not too fussed that we're not getting her home just yet. And even in this episode, once they've done what they needed to do regarding Belinda's mystery, it was, well, how about we explore this? How about we do some Doctor Who? I'm reminded a little bit of the first Doctor on Skaro sabotaging his TARDIS, like the fluid link, as like guys, I'd love to get you back to London 1965, but I know it was 1963. Okay, I was doing the meme, all right? I said it, I thought it'd be fun, but I know you guys will go, 65, does this guy a fan? Sorry, didn't realise we were celebrating the 60th this year. I've thrown myself off. He's like, I'd love to get you guys back, but TARDIS is broken, guess we're going to have to go to Skaro. And that worked out really well for the Doctor. I don't think we're quite on that level of sneaky Doctor behaviour, but it's nice to have some shades of it. But who cares about any of that? Because this episode has a flipping cartoon in it, and he's real, and he's walking around. Mr. Ring-a-Ding is phenomenal. I'm in disbelief that we got this in a Doctor Who. We first see him on the big screen, and he's this kind of proper cartoon, in a cartoon setting, and that felt really authentic, that kind of Rubberhose animation. I'm not sure it's something that would fill a cinema. I know it didn't fill the cinema, but I'm not sure it would really get people in the 50s. That felt a little like 20, 30 years out. Like by then they had Cinderella. Wouldn't you rather watch that? Maybe not. Let me know if I'm wrong there, but I think that still, as the animation, it was so authentic and felt so great. But then he crawls out of the screen and he's just in a physical space with the Doctor and Belinda, and it's like, oh my god. They spend some time just lingering on him existing in that space and moving around him, and the Doctor's looking at him, and the episode's slowing down to go, can you believe how good this looks? And I can't. It's unbelievable. It is so much better than you would expect from Doctor Who. You would reasonably expect them to do a pretty good job, or a bad job, and you'd go, well, it is Doctor Who. But this is a good job. This is a great job. He's just a cartoon. He's there. And the Doctor, I like that, in that initial meeting, the Doctor's primary reaction is just delight at what he's seeing, because me too. It's a great design because it feels like you wouldn't question it in that kind of animation, that kind of old classic 30s cartoon, 50s cartoon. You would look at that and go, yeah, that's just a character. But then you do start to go, what is he? Pig nose, blue. It's a strange design, and it's an off design. And there are no cracks at all when he makes the jump into 3D either. I think that's the bit where you'd maybe expect it to stop looking quite so good. At first you get this, as he's absorbing all the energy, you get this fairly faithful 3D version of the 2D character, and then he just starts getting more and more grotesque detail. And it's like, those kind of, this will be graphics in 2013, this will be SpongeBob in 2014, that kind of thing. And that looks great. I mean, it looks awful and gross, but it looks great. I remember when we had Alan Cumming in Series 11, I said he should come back. He should be a recurring presence in Doctor Who. I thought for the Chibnall era, having a kind of a recurring historical presence, historical figure like Winston Churchill in Series 5 would be good, because he was such a brilliant addition to the Witchfinders. I clearly wasn't specific enough when I said we wanted Alan Cumming back, because we've got him in a different capacity, but this is just as great as a role for him. He's very good at dropping the cartoon voice and actually becoming quite sinister, but then he's very good at actually going back to the cartoon voice, or starting with the cartoon voice and being very funny, and funny in a way that's kind of as the cartoon would be, and also as a kind of self-aware cartoon would be. He has that line that's like, I'm a two-dimensional character, don't expect backstory, and it's like, that feels like it could be annoying, but he sells it, and yeah, it works. I really like Don't Make Me Laugh as a creepy play on the cartoon catchphrase. I think it's actually quite sinister, the kind of don't make me laugh, and then just to continue to go, don't make me, like, really bring that energy up, and that's, that intensity up, and you're like, oh god, I really don't want to make this guy laugh. I wish it had a different payoff. I wish, and I know the whole reason it exists is to pay off with the giggle, but I think to go from, don't make me laugh, and then to pay that off with, ha 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 ha, it's not scary. It's a Neil Patrick Harris thing. It's a callback, and it's it's all that just for a little arpeggio. It's I don't know. It doesn't mean anything to me. I don't go, oh, okay, he's a god, but they could have brought him into the pantheon in a different way. I mean, Sutek didn't go. Maybe he should have. Frankly, yeah. Sorry, I've changed my mind. I'm glad Lux did it, and Sutek should have barked it. I didn't understand the bit where he has to dance and sing along to the song when it's on screen behind him. I get it. I think there should have been another line or something to bring that into his rules, because he's all about rules. But they starts playing behind him, and then he starts doing it. He's like, well, I have to see this through. It's like, oh, do you? Was that something we knew? Maybe it was. I was jet-lagged and then on a plane the 2 times I've watched it, so, forgive me if I've missed something there, but that just felt like the one moment of like, Okay. I love when Belinda and the Doctor get turned 2D and we see them as cartoons. I love their over-the-top performances. The acting becomes worse, and at first I was like, well, maybe they're just not very good voice actors, but then they're doing the whole, they're two-dimensional characters and therefore, a little less nuanced. I wish we'd seen that kind of thing for just a little bit longer, another minute or so, because it was like, wow, this is fun. Oh, it's right over. But I do like, getting character depth is how you get physical depth in this space. I like the kind of talk about your, feelings and emotions and backstory to break out of your cartoon constraints. There's a conversation to be had about how RTD's idea of depth is the Doctor going, I'm the last of the Time Lords, because... but as a beat, it works. I like the two of them pulling themselves through the frames. I thought that was great. I like them arriving in the real world and then realising it wasn't. I thought that was a pretty good fake out, especially because it tricked me, but it didn't for a moment trick the Doctor. He does not buy it for a second, and I think that's a great little beat. It just reminded me of the Devil's Chord in, it was breaking all these rules, but it was just doing it so much better than the Devil's Chord did. It's kind of being weird with it and getting it so right. The Doctor and Belinda climbing forward through the TV, coming up against the screen, I loved that. It felt like a solution that made sense. I felt like they were going to climb through the letterboxing of the episode. They've got this frame that doesn't quite fill the screen, and I thought this would be the perfect opportunity to break the rules of actual television there. And you've got that kind of built-in opportunity for a 3D effect, but maybe they had to stick to a particular shape of the episode for other reasons. I don't know. Maybe it would have been cool to further letterbox it just ever so slightly, just so you could break that. I don't know. I'm talking about what it doesn't do rather than what it does do. They arrive in the Doctor Who, the fans, the living room of some Doctor Who fans watching the episode. And, that's really when the episode's like, ooh, you better get this right because this could go either way. On the one hand, it's a great idea. The Doctor climbs through the TV, ends up in your living room. It's dream come true. It had to be done, but also it could have gone horrendously wrong and just been the worst thing that the show has ever done. I think it's a really good decision to get actors to play Doctor Who fans rather than bringing in actual Doctor Who fans. I think, if they'd crawled through and seen Tharies and Crystal D and me, it would have just been the worst thing ever put to screen. Although I think the Doctor and Belinda really would have got along well with me and probably brought me along with them. I think we just would have hit it off and... I think the whole thing was done with enough knowingness and heart to make it work. It was fun and funny and heartfelt, and I don't know, it was warm. It was, making jokes at the expense of Doctor Who fans. It was saying, a lot of people say we're annoying, but also kind of saying, we've met our friends through this. It was. I think that's really nice. It's self-deprecating, or I guess just deprecating, but not cruel. And I think that's a really nice line that it finds. I like the acknowledgement that you can find friends through Doctor Who, because I certainly have. I was actually watching it at the time with Tharies and Crystal D. I don't know. I think the Doctor and Belinda's reaction to being fictional really sells it. I think it's fun. They're just sipping the, tea, and they're just like, we're fake. I can't believe that. I think it's a good moment. I think it loses steam once they try and really twist it into an emotional beat. Oh, they're not real. Oh, the Doctor's leaving them behind. Oh, we'll miss you, Doctor. Go out into the universe. I think that is when it overstays its welcome. And I'm like, okay, fine. But I don't think it brings the episode down too much, or even that aspect of the episode down too much. I think they should have quit while they were ahead there. Ncuti Gatwa has some moments this episode that I really loved. I think the moment where he's in the diner with the mother of Tommy Lee, and she says that he loves space movies and all that kind of sci-fi stuff, and the Doctor kind of gives this little warm smile of, it's an acknowledgement that that's also his thing, and he understands the appeal of that kind of thing, but also it's this gentle kind of sadness that Tommy Lee is in trouble, and I don't know, it just felt like such a well-struck moment. And I think we get that later as well when he's talking to the projectionist about the lost love. Just these moments of kind of quiet, gentle sensitivity and maturity from the Doctor. And I think it gives him this sense of age and kindness, and I think that's a great bit of Doctor Who characterization there. I also really liked how he faced off against Lux. I think compared to like the hyperventilating kind of over the top thing when he came up against the Maestro, or the shouting at a CGI nothingness void for Sutekh, I think it was played really well. There was this stillness, this kind of calm, maybe not calm, this still intensity to him that I think really worked as a I'm Doctor Who and I'm stopping you kind of moment. I think it's worth talking about the kind of race element, the 1952 segregated South element, and I think I'm clearly not the guy to talk about this, but I think it's worth flagging. I've seen a bit of discussion here and there on that. I think to me it seems like a much better way of dealing with it than we had a few years ago, 10, 15 years ago, I don't know where we're at, with the Shakespeare Code, where the 10th Doctor's like, just shrug it off, just pretend it's not there, and it's not there. Walk around like you own the place, that was it, wasn't it? And that has always felt gross, whereas this feels a little more of a well-judged kind of, we acknowledge it's there, we, have to be careful, but we let the feeling and the grief that comes from it, we save it for later so that we can do a Doctor Who. And to me that feels like a smart, mature way of handling it, and I've seen some people say it's good, some people say it's bad. I don't know, it feels worth bringing up, even though it's not my topic to bring up. And Belinda in this episode continued to just make me love her. She has this bit where she's kind of like, I'm Belinda, this is the Doctor, always just the Doctor, and he's like, yeah, and she's like, ridiculous. It's really great. I think it's the go-to comparison for a dynamic like that is the Doctor and Donna, and I think there are shades of that, but I think this is also its own thing. It's this different kind of dismissive attitude to the Doctor as a vibe. By the end, they seem to be getting on a little well. I kind of hope that the tension remains, and the not quite fully buying into the Doctor as this legend remains, because that's such an interesting part of the two of them, and I think to get over it in an episode and a half would be a bit of a shame. I need them to have a few more fallings out. Belinda as well in this episode, she got to save the day. Talking of that resolution, I like that the way to defeat Lux was just to give him too much of what he wanted. That's not a totally novel concept, but I think, he wanted to absorb all the power of the atomic bombs and all that, and they gave him the sun, and it was just too much for him. But it wasn't too much for him, and he exploded. It wasn't too much for him, and he died. It was too much for him, and he got what he wanted. He was happy. He absorbed all this light and became everything and became nothing. And I think that was actually quite a nice, not beautiful moment, but it's a very, very nice moment. Yeah. Good. Everyone's happy. They solved the problem, but they didn't kill him. They didn't make him die, and that's a nice change, I suppose. Other miscellaneous thoughts from this episode. I don't know if it's because I was overseas. I was watching this on my iPad on Disney Plus, and Disney Plus streaming quality. I downloaded it. Disney Plus quality is that much better than iPlayers, but the TARDIS exterior looks so wonderful. I don't know if they've changed anything about it, but it's just so textured and lovely and gorgeous and really great stuff. I also liked the production design on the cinema. I work in a cinema. It was like those videos, like real bank robber reviews GTA. It was like that, like real cinema worker reviews Lux, and everything checked out. Everything was authentic to my experience. We had a little cartoon run around the other day. I don't want to get into it, but yeah. I liked the look of the moonlight as it kind of shone down and moved through the space. I think, it was good. I liked the concept and the execution of the victims being trapped in film. That was good. I like movies. I like that kind of thing. I think the caretaker element, Reginald Pye, he was a bit of a nothing character to me. I think I like the effect of him dancing with his wife, and she's kind of film and got all that black and white film effect, and then she's real. I like that. Everything else, take it or leave it. I don't think it works. I don't think it adds much. And I think it's the main element here that feels underbaked. I think other side characters, I like the little diner boy, man. He's really sweet. He's got some nice little moments. And the same with the mum of Tommy Lee. I think both of them do everything they need to do and more in a couple of instances. For some reason, Murray Gold's playing the hits with this one. I don't know what's going on there. It makes a little bit of sense when we're in the Doctor Who fans' living room, and we're kind of dealing with the Doctor in this kind of meta sense, playing Madman with a Box. It works, but then you pair that with just randomly playing Amy's theme in the opening scenes. It's like, why are we doing that? I feel like, yeah, it's not great to remind me of Series 5 if you want me to like what I'm currently watching, because it just kind of, it's not as good as Series 5. Not many things are. I'm not sure any of them are. So, yeah, that feels like an odd decision. It's interesting that spoons came back into play, like the moonlight bouncing off the spoon to bring Lux into everything. Spoons were involved before Empire of Death. Something to do with Sutekh, defeating Sutekh, maybe. I remember the scene leading up to it. I remember the Spoon Woman is what I've named her in my head. I don't know actually how that came into be, but a spoon's a thing? Let me know in the comments if spoons are a thing. Mrs. Flood popping up made me laugh. I like her teasing, the show's finale on the 24th. I know, actually, the 24th of May is the start of the finale, presumably. There's actually an episode beyond that. I saw someone saying that she might be teasing, all this stuff about the speculation about the show's future. Maybe that's Mrs. Flood. Part of her arc is making you think the show's going to get cancelled after season 2. That would be great. I feel like a lot of the uncertainty with the show is real, but it would be really fun if this was all a big ploy that she made us think that there wasn't a future for Doctor Who, when in fact Disney have greenlit another 55 episodes of Doctor Who. I was going to say seasons. I don't know why I aimed low for my hypothetical. Yeah, I don't know, Lux, let's talk about it generally. I feel I have a bit less to say about it, because I think it's just a bit more straightforwardly good, compared to the other one where you can kind of pick apart what works and what doesn't. I just think this works. Lux himself is a great addition to the whole God thing that we're doing with this era. I think he's maybe held back by the need to be part of the whole God thing. I don't know, I think specifically in the element of the Don't Make Me Laugh, and I don't think the Harbinger letters thing, I mean, it's RTD and his bloody letters. I don't think that adds anything, but if they keep using the Pantheon as a way to add characters like Lux into the mix, then I think I'm more than happy to keep experiencing that. I've got to go now, so I'm going to do a time jump, change clothes, change the natural light of this room, and talk about whatever the third episode's called, The Well. So The Well is another classic Doctor Who setup. It's on a planet, in a space station. I don't know if it's called a space station, if it's on a planet, but like just a big abandoned facility. There's something there. They're doing a Doctor Who. And so that's pretty good. That's pretty fun. That's like, oh yeah, I recognise this, and that makes it good. And we'll come on to a bit more of that. But I thought the facility itself looked really cool. I didn't know if it was, they've got these big rooms, this kind of huge ceilings, it felt really practical, the space. I didn't know if it was a location or just big sets, or kind of, I imagine there was some CGI set extension going on, but it was all fairly seamless, and I liked the look of where we spent this episode, which is a good thing. We start with the clothes thing again. I don't know, I quite liked it, but I think twice in 2 weeks is a bit much. I guess it's just what we're doing now. Maybe it would have worked more for me if they'd used a different song, but Toxic felt bizarre. It's kind of, we've had, 2 instances of them doing it in the past, and you get some kind of fun, old-timey, rock and roll-esque music, and that felt like it fit. But now we're in the future, and they're playing Toxic by Britney Spears, and it has a history with the show. It was used for a great gag 20 years ago, but it's like, it doesn't feel, as a time period, doesn't feel relevant, doesn't feel vibe accurate. I guess the planet is toxic because of the radiation. Is that it? Is that the joke? I think that's a bit bad, to be honest. They look cool in the spacesuits. I think it's a fun look. I mean, it's kind of like, oh, would it have been better if we'd seen them in the classic orange spacesuit? And maybe, but I really like these spacesuits as a design, and I like that they get enough of it off them that they look different to the others. But I guess if you're doing that, maybe the orange spacesuit would have been a better way of doing it. I don't know. I think they maybe could have had a line about the TARDIS and its ability to give them exactly the clothes they need, because it doesn't feel outside of the TARDIS's capabilities. It feels, in line with the chameleon circuit and, the knowledge of where you're landing and giving you something that blends in perfectly there. But to just have them in it and then they step outside and it's what everyone else is wearing, that feels a little convenient. And it's like, it doesn't have to. Like, it's only convenient because you don't write a nonsense sci-fi explanation. And we can imagine a nonsense sci-fi explanation, but when we don't, we're just like, well, that was lucky, wasn't it? Because you've got your kind of typical Doctor Who setup, it allows the Doctor to do some typical Doctor Who things, which I think is good. Like, we've got him kind of using the psychic paper and taking charge of a room, which is something I'm not sure I've seen Ncuti do before. I'm not sure when he would have, but it's good. It means you can kind of, draw a line back from him to all the other Doctor Whos that have done similar things. It's fun, it's good. And it also means you get a moment of Belinda joining in with the psychic paper cover story. Like, she just gets it. There was no explanation there. She's just like, right, yeah, no, yeah, I'm with him too. And I think that's good. I like Belinda quite a lot. I don't know if you can tell from this video. I think it's nice that Belinda being a nurse gives her a practical skill that lets her just kind of slot into a particular role in a big ensemble episode like this. I think usually it's the Doctor has something to do because he's the Doctor, and then the leader of the astronauts has something to do, and then the minor astronaut characters, and the companion is just kind of, around. But I think, having something that Belinda can do and contribute and, be part of that dynamic is really good, because from there you get her talking to the people around her and finding out things as the companion. That's the main companion role, but it's just cool to have it done through something specific to Belinda, because this is an episode with a kind of bigger ensemble of supporting Doctor Who characters. It's nice to kind of arrive upon a group of characters that already have an established dynamic, and our characters have to kind of break their way into that and figure out the vibe, and get to know these characters through that. And I think some of these characters this time round are actually pretty good and interesting. The best of the crew is the troop leader, Shire. She's not a new character archetype in Doctor Who by any means, but I think she's a very good example of that archetype. And I think I really appreciate that she seems to twig fairly early on that the Doctor isn't who he says he is, but also realise that the Doctor is a valuable enough addition to this expedition that she doesn't care, and she's, happy to go along with him because it's a mutually beneficial thing. I quite like that, because so often the realisation that the psychic paper was a ruse and they aren't who they say they are, that is then the conflict, and it's like, why should we trust you? We don't even know who you are, and you lose the value of the psychic paper, which is to get you to that stage. There are some other characters that have stuck with me. The one Belinda spends a lot of the time talking to, is it Mo? Have I made that up? I think I might have seen it in a tweet rather than remembered it from the episode. But I quite liked her. I liked, I didn't like. I thought the mean guy, Cassio, I thought he kind of ranged from kind of understandable conflict character, like kind of he wants to do things by the books, and suddenly there's this Doctor figure that's throwing everything out and breaking protocol and doing all that, and I think that's an understandable and necessary conflict to have. And then he just ranges from that to cartoonishly, insanely moron behaviour, like when he's just running around making everyone die. It's like, what is this? What? So. Oh, we've also got Alice. Alice isn't part of the crew. She's more, I guess, the mystery of the episode, I suppose. She's or kind of at the centre of that mystery. But she is so sweet and lovely, and you want the best for her. But at the same time, she's hiding just enough about herself and about the situation that you feel that sense of like, well, I can't fully wish the best for you, Alice, because there's something you're not telling me, and how much of this are you part of, and how much is it just kind of arrived upon you. And I think the mystery situation we find her in is really effective in that kind of, all right, I guess that could happen, that there would just be a last person alive, but why are you the last person alive? The Doctor is so sweet and gentle and kind with her, and it's like that 15th Doctor maturity and kind of softness that I think is so much better this season. I'm buying these moments so much more, and yeah, this was another great example of that. I like that he can sign. Of course, he'd be able to sign, but I like the hologram words, the screens that come up. I like how messed up it is that they turn it off to talk about her. I think that would just be it's so horrifying, and I think the episode wants you to find it horrifying. It's not just unfortunate. I think it's they've got this opportunity to talk about her without her understanding, and they take it, but it's such a dark thing to do, and yeah, no, I don't. I liked what that made you confront of, like, oh God, when you've got that kind of physical advantage over someone, and there's this dangerous situation. Do you take it, or do you? Awful. But good. Because this episode isn't just people in a big space station hanging out. That would be too nice, wouldn't it? There's some scary stuff going on. And I quite like the jump scares, because I like that it's big, loud, scary jump scare music and sound effects with the tiniest glimpse of something visually, to the point where at first I was like, what was that? I didn't see anything, as Belinda saw something, but I didn't. And then, you go back and it's like, oh no, there actually was something for Belinda to see. But I like that it makes me second guess myself, but it makes the characters second guess themselves, and they start going, no, I didn't see anything, and then there's a bit of conflict, a bit of doubt, a bit of I don't know. When a villain's main role is to spread mistrust and paranoia and turn people against each other, it brings the kind of character stuff to the forefront, and I think reminds me of another story that might be quite relevant to this one. But I think comparing it to Midnight, there is much less here as far as substance goes in that conflict. I think you think of that episode, it's everyone trapped in this space, and they're all kind of coming at the problem with a slightly different angle, and it all makes sense. Like, a lot of them are kind of part thinking rationally with what their rationale is, and part thinking just fully driven by fear, and you can trace back all of their lines and decisions, and you know where they're all coming from. Whereas here it's like most people are acting fairly sensibly, if a little scared, and one man is acting unfathomably stupid and just running around, and everyone's been thrown up in the air and killed. I think maybe the crew was a bit big to really feel the impact of those deaths. I think if you'd started with kind of 6 people, maybe when a couple of them get killed, it actually feels like a loss, because here it was like, oh no, not the nameless nobodies. Oh, that's serious. I bet any moment now the threat's going to come for the people I actually like. It's also a sequel, follow-up to Midnight. I knew it was because it leaked online, #RIP Doctor Who. I don't know. I didn't read the leaks, but I read the tweets from people that had read the leaks, and some of them were just pretending to be really good at guessing again, because that's what this fandom does. They're just smug and annoying, and they read up on what's going to happen and then just join in with the speculation like they're just geniuses. Like, I think I've worked something out, guys. It's like, no, you haven't. And also, with a little bit of blame elsewhere, this show cannot stop leaking everything it's doing. I didn't like that the Doctor figured out that it was a Midnight sequel just because someone was like, we don't know what it is. Is that not the stupidest thing of all time? Because I thought it was the stupidest thing of all time. I think what follows is then the Doctor asking questions and getting this slow dripping of information about, oh, this used to be a diamond planet, oh, this, or the sun used to be so bright and intense, or the, it used to be called Midnight, and it's this fairly effective, slow reveal, but the Doctor seems already sure that it's Midnight after, he's doubting and he wants clarification, but as soon as they say, we don't know what it is, he's like, oh no, I know what this is. It's like, why? Why would you know that? It's just the arbitrary, now's the bit where he finds out it's a Midnight sequel moment, and thumbs down on that bit. So what do we gain from this episode's association with one of the best episodes from the first Russell T Davies era, beyond just the potential for a really unflattering comparison? It feels like you're setting yourself up for failure there, which maybe is very brave. They did what they thought, they shouldn't do, and surely that's a bad idea because you're never going to top it. But, let's talk about, what does this episode have outside of that association, what is it offering substance-wise beyond the fact it's a Midnight sequel? We have this decently set up kind of premise of Alice in this base, and everyone else is dead, and we don't know why, and we don't know who's at fault, and we don't know who to trust. But I think from there, it kind of felt like they didn't know how to escalate those stakes. They didn't know how to raise the intensity without then relying on this existing association of fear and dread with Midnight. They don't do much to actually elevate the stakes. They just kind of tell you that the stakes have been raised by the fact we now know what this is. Because it felt like even if you take away the Midnight element, a lot of people have suggested that, this episode doesn't need Midnight, take it away. I feel like even by just before the reveal, that setup was kind of running a little low on energy. It was kind of, right, we need something else, we need something big. And to not really raise it in any way, but just to go, oh, now we know what it is, that's extra scary. And it's like, oh, it's doing all the same stuff. It almost felt like the obvious thing is that once you find out it's Midnight, it starts doing Midnight-related things. It's the mimicking thing, and it's one of those things where it's like you understand why they didn't. Like, I'm sure they considered it. If they're doing Midnight 2, do you get it to do the copying? But I thought they were like, I imagine they were probably like, well, no, we did that as well as you can do it, and we are setting ourselves up for failure there. But then I think if you do Midnight and don't do that, why are you doing Midnight? And I guess, in that vein, why are you doing Midnight? I don't think the you can't go behind it rule is enough of a kind of significant replacement to that initial Midnight hook. I think if it was a clock, you can't stand on midnight. It's like, does nothing for me. And I think, I don't know, that feels like the start, and then something escalates from there, and it just kind of doesn't. I think the rule doesn't always feel consistent either. Like, is it Alice you're not allowed to go behind because she's turning fairly, I don't know, and then sometimes that's weaponized and sometimes it's just not. I don't know, it kind of felt off, that whole thing, and it felt like that was the start and everything else. Also, it's not very scary to throw someone around, like just having people whoa woo woo. That's not, that's closer to silly than it is to horrifying, or at least it is in its execution. Maybe it's because it's happening so rapidly and for such stupid reasons. But I saw someone suggest that if everyone just dropped dead in that moment, as soon as the entity decides that you need to drop dead, that would be quite effective. But I don't even think it needs to be that. I think maybe even just being sent backwards rather than up and down and all over the place. Also, if you're coming up with new hooks, new mechanics to replace the Midnight copying, something being behind you at all times that you can't always see and that other people get glimpses of, but if you turn around, there's nothing there. That's been done before. It was done the episode after Midnight in 2008, and I don't know, it just feels like a funny thing to I wouldn't, if it was a different episode, I'd be saying, Turn Left did it, this is doing it slightly differently. But I think the fact it's doing Midnight, but then saying, okay, we're not doing the exact same as Midnight, we're doing something new. We're doing Turn Left. It's like, okay. I don't know, I also felt that the whispering element was odd and muddled, that, like, I don't get it. Like, you could hear a bit of whispering if you listened. Does the whispering make you mad? Does it make you kill people? Does it kill you if you hear the whispering? Because that didn't seem to be how it worked. They said that Alice was still alive because she couldn't hear the whispering, but I thought the only reason everyone on the station was killing each other is because they could see the thing behind them, behind the people they were killing. So that all felt really odd. And then the doctor goes, oh no, it says my name. It's like, no one cares about your name. That was a thing over 10 years ago. Stephen Moffat got as much out of that as anyone could. Russell T Davies has never been interested in the Doctor's name. It's only ever really been a thing in Moffat's scripts. And I don't know, it's like, okay, yeah, the Midnight Entity knows your name. It was also in your head for a time, so that's more interesting, not more interesting, but that's enough of an explanation anyway than if it was just whispering near you. That felt really muddled, and it's like, okay, so we've got the thing behind you, you can't go behind it, and you've got whispering, and none of it comes together in any kind of, I get what we're doing here. It just felt like kind of random throwing scary elements at a Midnight sequel to see what would stick. And some of it did stick, but it didn't kind of stick in a way that felt cohesive. So I'm not satisfied with this as a Midnight sequel, but I also don't think it does anything to undercut the impact of Midnight for me. Like, I've seen people say, oh, ruining Midnight by going back to it. I don't think that's true. I think on principle I would agree that we shouldn't see the Midnight entity, but in this episode I never really got the sense that we had. Glimpses of it, the tiniest glimpses of it felt in line with the, tiny indications of what it was that we got in the original story. It's just that, that was a lot more kind of audio stuff and this is a lot more visual, but still barely visual. And I also think it wasn't there in enough shots. Like, it wasn't like it was always there. You could see it if you tried. It was like, for a lot of it, it just wasn't there. So I think, to me, that indicated that it was, it doesn't always have both feet in the physical space. I think it's enough of this kind of intangible entity, and intangible was kind of my takeaway from it. Even when you could kind of see it in the background, I never felt I got a sense of what it was. So I've not gone, oh no, now they've done the stupidest thing and shown us what the entity looks like after all these years. I think I've seen on Twitter you can crop and zoom in and loop the footage and let's actually get as close a look at this as you can, and then seeing that and going, oh, now I know what it looks like. But you don't have to do that. And I didn't feel watching the episode that I had seen that. So yeah, it's not a great Midnight sequel. I don't know really how much it has to offer outside of being a Midnight sequel. It definitely seems to come apart as soon as it ties itself to Midnight, but I also think it might have just done that anyway. Like, it's always easier in Doctor Who to set up an atmospheric mystery, a kind of scary situation. It's always easier to do the initial moments of that than it is to, resolve that or even like raise the stakes mid-episode, because the resolution I didn't even hate Shia running and jumping into the well and killing herself with the entity on her. I thought the build-up to that was really rushed, given how much time we'd spent potentially treading a bit of water pre-Midnight reveal. I think the fact it was like, right, I'm going to shoot Belinda in the heart and I'm going to slightly miss and then she's going to come back. This is this is episode 3 of the first season. The companion gets shot and killed and then defibrillated back to life. That's weird. But that felt like there was no time spent on it at all. And then everything else, maybe a little bit too much time spent on it. But I like a strong character. I like that the Doctor gets to have one form of victory over the creature with the reflection and the Mercury. But I like that the final victory goes to a strong, side character that we like and can get behind as a savior rather than Ko Sharmus, for example. And I feel like the only people that know who Ko Sharmus is are the people that are going to be annoyed I was mean about Ko Sharmus. So yeah, I like what the resolution is doing. I just think it happens badly. Not the actual death of Shia, but I think the build up to that is it's that classic Act 3 whiplash that you get from Russell T Davies scripts and a lot of New Who, Doctor Who scripts, to be honest. I think it's why Part 1s are often so much better than Part 2s. I think I quite like the tease at the end that the entity might have, still been there and come back to the ship with them. That felt kind of fun and cheesy and, oh no, tune in next week, see what's going to happen. I know that's not how Doctor Who works, but I like that as a tease. If you think a little more and it's like, well, if that's the same entity that was getting them the whole way through, if it's only ever been one thing, then nothing was on Shia when she killed herself. And that's really great. That's a really dark implication. She just threw herself down a well for no reason. Belinda, her fear and doubt convinced her that the creature was on her, and was it whoever the entity might have actually been on, convinced themselves that it wasn't through denial. And yeah, so Shia died for literally no reason. And I think I wish that implication came through a little more, because I think in the moment where we're dealing with that, we have just had to deal with Mrs. Flood. Just nonsense Mrs. Flood on a screen, undercutting the impact of all this stuff. And this was the first time I was like, oh, Mrs. Flood, get out of here. We don't need you. This is... I don't know, it was her most Susan Twist cameo yet. It felt totally unrelated, really, to what we were doing here. And, it doesn't help that she looks like Susan Twist in Space Babies when you just get her on a screen in a Star Trek costume. But, I don't know, that's the first time that this as an arc has made me go, oh, for God's sake. But I do like, as far as arc-related things tying into this, all the stuff about there being no Earth and no human race in the future. I think that's a really fun, aspect to tease. And I think it's, it's not, what happened to Earth was so awful. It was just, what's Earth? What's the human race? And I like that the atmosphere and the vibe that they convey with those moments is just pure dread. It's not, ooh, what a fun mystery. It's just, oh my god, this is the worst thing that can happen, and it's happening. And I like, the Doctor and Belinda getting that kind of simultaneously in different strands of the story. So yeah, The Well, not awful, not great, just a bit naff in places. I think there are individual elements here to like, and I think it does manage to craft a suitably eerie and effective atmosphere. But I think it doesn't live up to that all the time, and it doesn't live up to its legacy connections or stand well enough on its own. I don't know. I think it might be my least favourite of the three. I think it's, obviously Lux is the best, but Robot Revolution and The Well have similar problems. I think I can point to more I like about Robot Revolution because of what it's doing with Belinda. So yeah, I think The Well, it's the least of my favourites, because that's how you say words. But this episode wasn't enough to get me off the "this season is good" hype train. I think I still love Belinda. I still think the Doctor's performance and characterization is so much richer. I ran a poll on Twitter recently. Incidentally, the only thing I've done on Twitter recently, so I wouldn't bother going and checking all that. And I asked which of the companions was better, and Belinda won so staggeringly, conclusively, and I would have voted for Belinda, but I was surprised to see just how many people voted Belinda over Ruby Sunday. I think she is just a great character already, and I hope they continue to live up to that. I hope they continue to play into what works about the character and start throwing in a little bit more conflict with her and the Doctor, because that feels like if you're going to do the reluctant companion thing, make sure she's reluctant for enough of it. I'm liking the direction this season. I think that was one of my complaints, if you remember in my last video, of the previous season. I felt that things were a bit flat, whereas here, it's nothing mind-blowing, but there's these interesting kind of angles on interesting faces, and there's enough going on. I'm thinking of a couple of shots in particular of the Doctor's face at an angle, and the, Ruby, what's she called? Belinda, at a kind of interesting kind of perspective. And I think just little moments that make the show visually stimulating, and you get the more flashy versions of that as well, like the two star certificates touching each other, and you get that trippy kind of, felt a bit classic Who, that sequence. I really liked that. It was simple but effectively done, and it would be nice to get more moments like that where the visuals are contributing to the experience and not just kind of there as a way of conveying the script. I mean, if we compare where we are this season to where we were last season, I mean, we've had Joy to the World, Robot Revolution, Lux, and The Well. We compare that to The Church on Ruby Road, Space Babies, Devil's Cord, and Boom. There's a clear winner there, and I think it's easy to make that comparison because we are following a similar trend. You've got the kind of mixed bag Christmas special, but I think I much prefer Joy to the World because of how much it just nails the Doctor as a character. I think, you've got that first trip, first adventure situation with the companion that, is fun and exciting for what's to come, but not great on its own. But again, I prefer Robot Revolution to Space Babies. And then you've got the one that's weird and with a god and, breaking some rules and, but obviously Lux is great, and I think Devil's Cord is bad. So that's clear. I think the only one that, last season wins is Boom and The Well. But I think I prefer Lux to Boom, maybe? I don't think The Well is worse than The Devil's Cord. I don't think it's maybe even worse than Space Babies. So I think we're still... I'm all over the place here. we're still in a good spot, I think, going forward. I'm interested to see what happens next. But let me know what your thoughts are on this season so far. Thank you so much for sticking with me on this kind of 3 videos in 1 situation. If indeed you have stuck with me on this situation. If you have, let me know in the comments how you'd rank these episodes, what you think of Belinda, ask me about my trip to Japan. And yeah, right now I'm feeling pretty good about this show. I'm kind of in the we're so back stage, and it would be nice if that could continue. Hopefully next week I'll have a video just on 1 episode. That would be fun, just like old times. Bit of classic J-Boi, a bit of classic Doctor Who. That's what we like to see. Yeah, I'll see you soon. Love you lots.